Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee, taking place in the Walton Suite of Winchester Guildhall. It is Wednesday, the 15th of July, 2026, and the time is 9:38 a.m. Just before we start the formal introduction, if anybody's here for item number 8, which is 49 Broad Street, Alresford, that item has been deferred to a future meeting, so nobody's running out, so that's good. My name is Councillor Jane Rutter, and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. To my right is my Vice Chair, Councillor Jonathan Williams. Around the table, we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by a number of officers. We have Deborah Smith, one of our principal planning officers, Daniel Lucas, our legal advisor, the case officers who will change generally with each item, and Matthew Watson, striding round, who is from Democratic Services and supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. May I remind you all to ensure your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off entirely. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please make sure you look at the handout provided on your chairs or on the information slides displayed on the way in or during the breaks for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with our public speaking protocols, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the work of the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome the members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contribution. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. Turning now to the agenda. So, item 1 on our agendas, apologies and deputy members. Do we have any, Matthew?
Good morning, Chair. Morning, members. So we have no apologies and we have all 9 members of the committee present. Thank you, Chair.
Splendid, thank you. Members, any disclosures of interest? I will kick it off by saying that I will recuse myself from item, which one is it? Item 10, which is in Pudding Lane, Hebburn Worthy, because they are near neighbours of mine, and to avoid any possibility of perceived predetermination or bias, I will leave the room and hand over to my deputy chairs. Any other members with disclosures of interest? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare that I have a disclosable pecuniary interest in respect to all items on the agenda today due to my additional role as a Hampshire County Councillor. However, as there is no material conflict of interest regarding these items, I have a dispensation granted by the Audit and Governance Committee that enables me to speak and vote on these matters. Additionally, Bishop's Farm, I am the ward member, however, had no discussions in regards to this application with applicants, the applicant or objectors.
Thank you. Councillor White.
I'd like to declare that agenda item 7 is in my ward, but I haven't discussed this application with anybody. Thank you.
Councillor Small.
Yes, the same as Councillor Williams, due to being a county councillor. I'm assuming I don't need to do the whole report.
Councillor Aaron.
Thank you. Item number 9, 1 Bridge Street, is in my ward, but I've had absolutely no involvement. Don't know anything about it apart from the application.
Thank you. Councillor Ablett.
I am the ward member for Hinton Ampner, but I've had no discussions with the applicant.
Oh, another one from Councillor Williams.
Sorry, I forgot to declare that item 11, so Hinton Ampner, is within my county council division, but I've had no discussions regarding this item.
Councillor Ablett, you mentioned that you had no discussions only with the applicant. Is that also the same for any potential objectors? You haven't had any discussions with them? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's clear. Any more? No? Good. So we now move to item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. So they have been sent out. Are they an accurate record of the meeting, please? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And can I propose that we accept the update sheet as an addendum to the report? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Good. So now we turn to the planning applications themselves. And the first is item 6 on our agendas at Bishop's Farm, Winchester Road, Bishop's Waltham. And our presenting officer is Nicola Martin. Good morning, Nicola. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to draw the attention of members to the update sheet. There's a couple of minor amendments on there for item 6 and also a couple of verbal updates.
Sorry, Councillor Nicola, could you just move the microphone a bit closer?
Yes, of course.
You're not very clear.
Let's try that again. Is that better? So I would like to draw the attention of the committee to the update sheet. There's a couple of minor amendments on there and a couple of verbal updates. The verbal updates relate to page 16. The penultimate paragraph, there's a dimension of 0.95 centimetres, which should be 0.95 metres. Apologies for that typo. And also for condition 1, the plan relating to the acoustic fencing, that's plan S.NM.417.04, revision A was omitted and should be included. So this application is for the retrospective change of use of a dwelling to allow the premises to be used for supported living for up to 4 adults with learning difficulties. Amended plans were submitted and these were reconsulted. The site has been in operation since approximately 2020 with the same 4 residents living on site. The building itself has been internally converted to provide 2 apartments on the ground floor and 2 apartments on the first floor. Each of the residents living in the facility has specialist needs and receives specialist care. This is either 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 carers per resident. Because of this level of care, it was established last year that the site does not fall under the category of C3, residential development, but is a combination of C2, residential institution, and C3, residential development, And this planning application is to regularise the development. Moving on to the site itself. The site is located within the settlement boundary of Bishop's Waltham and is accessed from Winchester Road, the B2177. Originally, the building was the farmhouse for, I think it's Albany Farm, and was originally surrounded by farmland, and residential development has built up in the latter part of the 20th century and in the early part of this century. The nearest residential neighbours to the southwest are number 10, 11, 12 and 13 Albany Court and number 10 Poppy Close. Poppy Close was constructed approximately within 10 years, past 10 years. This slide shows the site layout, showing the access from the Winchester Road, the area in front which is laid to hard standing and is providing 8 parking spaces. There are 2 private gardens for the residents who reside on the ground floor, and the remainder of the site is amenity grassland and hard standing, but it's used for all of the residents in combination. This slide shows the ground floor plan, also the floor plans, showing how the site has been altered internally to provide a 1-bedroom apartment here and studio apartment on the ground floor. Also on the ground floor is a communal kitchen and staff office. And on the first floor is apartment 3, and then there's apartment 4. Also provided on the first floor is a staff bedroom, staff bathroom, and the boiler room. This elevation is the southeast elevation and faces towards the rear gardens of Albany Court. This elevation is the southwest elevation and faces towards the residential property to the southwest, which is 10 Poppy Close. The applicant is proposing to erect an acoustic fence along the southwest and southeast boundaries of the site. The fence would be of 2.2 metres in height and would have reflective capabilities so that noise generated at ground floor level would be reflected into the building. The impact of the acoustic fence would be where there is line of sight. So noise would be experienced at the same level at first floor and neighbouring properties, but this fence would not make any impact to noise experience generated at first floor property. In addition to the fence, the applicant is proposing to plant what's called pleached trees on the inside of the fence. These would have a stem trunk height of 1.8 metres with the branches trained almost like a espalier, so that they provide additional landscape screening. Onto some photographs. This photograph is taken from Winchester Road and shows the access into the site and the car parking area. The Bishop's Farm building itself is shown on the left-hand side, and the row of dwellings you can see on the right is Poppy Close. This shows the car parking area, and it also shows the existing exterior lighting within the car parking area. You can see also that there's a slight change in difference in elevation between the application site and the neighbours to the southeast. Southeast, yeah. These are some photographs of the inside the site. This is the southeast elevation, the one on the right-hand side, which is facing towards the rear gardens of Albany Court. This is the southwest elevation facing towards 10 Poppy Close, and this elevation is the northwest facing towards the street on Poppy Close. More garden photographs. This one on the right-hand side shows the boundary between 10 Poppy Close and the application site. Again, there's a slight difference in elevation between the application site and Poppy Close. Poppy Close is approximately 40 to 50 centimetres lower in elevation than the application site. You might also see that the neighbour has erected some trellis on the fencing, of which they have planted some clematis, I believe, and providing additional screening from their side. And this property to the rear of these trees are is number 10 Albany Court. These photographs have been provided to us. Well, I took the photographs, but they've been allowed to be, the neighbours have provided their permission for us to use them, and they're taken from the garden of number 13 Albany Court. You can see here the relationship between the property itself and the rear boundary of the neighbours. The building, the southeast elevation is set back approximately 5 metres from the rear boundary. The windows that's on the southeast elevation are, this is the staff bedroom, this is the staff bathroom, this one here, which is the boiler room, and this is a window to a living space. It's one of the windows to the kitchen, living, dining area for apartment 3. This photograph is a view from the garden of 10 Poppy Close, again included with the permission of the owner. You can see this window here, which is mostly obscured by the planting, is the second window of the living room of apartment 3, and this window again, which is just seen, is the bedroom window of that apartment. The pleached trees and the acoustic fence would provide a similar height to the trellis which is planted, would provide screening of a similar height on the applicant's side to this trellis. And this photograph from Poppy Close is just from the street looking up at Bishop's Farm. So there have been a number of objections, a substantial number of objections from neighbours in relation to this application. They predominantly relate to parking and also loss of amenity. In relation to loss of amenity, the key items that neighbours have discussed are noise, In particular, noise generated by individuals living in the house, one or more of the individuals, which has been described as shouting or screaming and may be heard at any time or day or night. Other items of areas of disturbance to amenity include physical disturbance where items have been thrown or lost over the fence. They include footballs, some rubbish, some clothing, and some items of garden furniture. Other disturbances include conversations from staff members or the hubbub generated when staff members change shifts at 8 AM and 8 PM, and also smoke floating over the fence lines from staff members smoking in the gardens and in the area. Other concerns relating to disturbance and amenity are through external lighting, particularly in the car parking area, and also overlooking. The residents have been observed or may tend to sit out of the upstairs windows and look out of them, the windows, and there has been descriptions of when residents leaning out of windows on occasion. This window, so a number of the items raised by neighbours can be addressed by conditions. These can be addressed to some extent by conditions, including opaque glazing, in particular of this window, which is a living room window, given the proximity to the rear gardens of Albany Court. The acoustic fence, which is proposed together with the landscaping to provide some screening, particularly to neighbours, the 10 Poppy Close. Also, the no additional lighting, a condition to restrict additional lighting, and a condition to require a dedicated smoking area for members of staff. It is the case that noise generated by individuals and disturbances generated by individuals is not a land use planning matter, and therefore is not a material consideration that can be taken into account in decision making by officers. And as detailed in the officer's report, local residents have raised concerns with environmental protection colleagues, and investigations have been undertaken, although it was identified that the levels of statutory nuisance for noise have not been breached. So to summarise, the officer's recommendation is to approve, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, we now turn to public speaking. And our first public speaker is the ward councillor, Councillor Fleuren. If you'd like to come forward, Councillor Fleuren, thank you. You have up to 5 minutes, and the timer will start when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to start by saying, as a city councillor, I have the responsibility to all of the residents in my ward.
Sorry, Councillor, could you just move the microphone so that you're
Like now?
speaking? That's much. Thank you.
So I have the responsibility to all to the residents of my ward. So in this instance, both those living at Bishop's Farm and those living in the neighbouring dwellings. I want Bishop Bolton to be a place where people of diverse backgrounds and abilities are able to live together, and any objections to this application are not objections to assisted living or care facilities here. However, as the committee are aware, the burden in any planning application lies with the agent of change, in this case the applicant, Acorns Healthcare. They are responsible for ensuring that the changes that they are wishing to make as a business do not result in unacceptable terms and harm to those who are already here. With this being a retrospective application, we are not talking about hypothetical harms. The evidence demonstrates that the change of land use as already operated over a period of several years by Acorn Healthcare has resulted in persistent noise and disturbance, materially exceeding that associated with a residential dwelling, causing unacceptable harm to neighbouring occupiers, to the amenities of neighbouring occupiers. Winchester City Council Environmental Health received complaints in July 21, again in 2022, 23, 25, and also 26. In case it wasn't clear from the submissions by neighbours, environmental protection officers have expressed concerns that neighbouring residents are being adversely impacted in respect to amenity by the Bishop's Farm site. It is a fundamental principle of planning that if the committee is not convinced that Acorn Healthcare can mitigate these harms, then the application should be refused. It is therefore my belief that this application can only be approved by yourself if significant conditions are attached for Acorn Healthcare to mitigate those adverse impacts, as we have already seen occurring. Whilst I welcome the conditions proposed by officers in the report, local neighbours believe that some needs strengthening. And I would ask the applicant and the committee that the following changes be made. There are 6 altogether. The report states that the bleached trees may be evergreen or deciduous. Can we request that the condition is for evergreen trees? Number 2. The report lists 5 instances of objects being thrown over the boundary fences, but residents have informed me that not every incident has been reported. Can the landscaping conditions therefore also include a suitable depth of bed around the property boundary that reduces the possibility that objects, and especially large or heavy ones, be able to clear Bishop Farms boundaries? Number 3. The report recommends opaque window treatments for the first floor kitchenette that overlooks Albany Court. There has been some confusion about the use of the staff bedroom, which also overlooks Albany Court, with staff actually not resident, and the usage of this room not likely to mirror that of a typical dwelling bedroom. To address this, could the condition be for opaque window treatments for any first floor rooms overlooking Albany Court that are not residents' bedrooms? Number 4. As listed in the applicant's action plan, first floor windows must remain closed. If this does not mitigate noise, then triple glazing should be installed on those windows overlooking neighboring gardens. Number 5. The garden entrance to flat 2 continues being used as a main entrance to the property according to neighboring residents. Can the condition be added to ensure that this doorway is only used to access the garden and not as the main external entrance to the property? And finally, number 6, the technical note on the acoustic fencing acknowledges that in the live site, the noise reduction will fall short of the 28 decibels called for. With the physical barrier unable to reduce the noise sufficiently, could there be other elements that can be conditioned to help reduce the impact of the to the closest neighbours? The ideal solution by which all the residents can live together happily is if there is ongoing positive actions and relations between Acorn Healthcare and the neighbours. And I would ask that that takes place going forward, irrespective of the outcome of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the ward councillor? No, you're
I'm
very...
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Could I ask the Chancellor to repeat the last point? I didn't quite catch it. I'm so sorry.
Yes, please do. The last point, because I didn't quite.
It was
catch
about
it.
the fencing, yeah?
Fencing.
Point number 6.
Yes. So the technical note on the acoustic fencing acknowledges that in the live site and in many sensitive locations, i.e. gardens, the noise reduction will fall short of the 28 decibels called for. And the question is if there's anything else that could help to reduce the impact on the closest neighbours. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, if there's no more clarification required, thank you very much. You may return to your seat. Thank you. And next we have 3 supporters, Neil March, Hayden Foster and Cass Palmer. I'm assuming that just one of you is going to speak and the others are there for... Okay, that's lovely. And then we can ask clarification questions if necessary. Thank you very much. Between you, you have 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm joined by Hayden Foster, who is a registered director and manager of Acorns, who has worked for the company since it first established in 2019, and Cass Palmer, who joined Acorns as a CEO following its takeover in 2024 and has overall responsibility for the running of the group's homes. Most of the properties that Acorns own and manage fall under the use classification C3B. This means they do not need planning permission to change from being a family dwelling to supported living for up to 6 residents living together and receiving care with the care provided by non-resident staff. Bishop's Farm has been operating in this way since August 2000, so nearly 6 years. When it was set up, it was on the firm understanding that it fell within the C3B use class and therefore did not require planning permission. It was only when the company was taken over in late 2024 and the new owners wanted confirmation of its permitted use that it became a planning matter. A lawful development certificate application was submitted seeking confirmation that the property was C3B. However, the City's council solicitors considered that the property had elements of C3B and C2. So in their view was a mixed use. This decision can still be challenged at appeal, but it was suggested that we should apply for planning permission, and believing this to be a quicker and less onerous way to resolve the matter, planning application was duly submitted. This is how the application before you today came to be submitted. Just to be clear, this is a home, not a care home or a care facility. The residents are tenants. They have their own tenancy agreements and are therefore subject to the same rules as anyone else living in a rented property. We commend your officers on their excellent report, which is very fair, balanced and professional. Significantly, it confirms that the proposal is about land use and not the individuals living there per se, and that with conditions, the use will be acceptable in planning terms and comply with the policies and the council's up-to-date local plan. We have worked closely with the off-case officers, providing additional information they have required and in finding permanent solutions such as the proposed acoustic fencing and bleached trees, which will help to reduce noise as well as provide additional natural screening. I will now hand you over to Mr. Foster, who would also like to say a couple of words.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I will ask the committee to consider the lives of the people who call Bishop's Farm home. Before moving here, many of the individuals had experienced trauma, abuse and instability. Their lives lack structure, security and the support that many of us take for granted. Today, their lives are very different. They're living with dignity, stability and purpose. They are active members of the local community, participating in local activities, building confidence and developing greater independence. They enjoy holidays, spend time with friends and have rebuilt family relationships that were once thought impossible. The quality of care and support that's provided is reflected in Acorn's recent inspection, which resulted in a good rating from the Care Quality Commission. This independent assessment demonstrates the home's strong leadership, effective support and positive outcomes achieved for the people who live there. I would also ask the committee to recognise that this application is about maintaining a home where vulnerable people are supported to lead meaningful and fulfilling lives. The stability of the environment is fundamental to their continued progress, well-being and future development. I would respectfully ask the committee to approve this application so that the residents can continue to thrive in a safe and well-managed home.
Thank you very much and good. Sticking to the time. Well done. Members, do we have questions of clarification for the representatives of Acorns? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. The ward councillor mentioned a number of additional conditions or changes that could be made. Just picking out one of them, which I think was quite obvious in regards to the proximity to Poppy Close, the closest house there. It was mentioned that potentially adding a bedding area may increase the distance to 10 Poppy Close and therefore mitigate further objects being thrown over. I know the landscaping plan conditions the tree height, but whether a distance, you think that could be something that you'd agree to?
Yeah, that's not an issue at all. That's okay.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, is you talked about the professional way in which their tenants and their own, but there are staff that come in to support them. Is there a management plan or some sort of guidance for staff about, being respectful to neighbours and keeping down the noise when they're handing over and that sort of thing? I know that a specific smoking area is one of the conditions, but it's a general, having a respect for neighbours that I'm concerned about. So is that something that you have or could put in place?
Yes, that's something that is in place and will continue. Bishop's Farm has involvement from both a manager based on site, who's there every day, including senior management input from us that visit on a daily basis. Actually, there's been a massive improvement from where Bishop's Farm first started to where it is now, including bringing on a CEO that has massive involvement in the property.
Thank you. Councillor Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. I Also, just like Councillor Williams noted that one of the conditions seemed very reasonable, which was to say that the pleach trees should not be deciduous, but should be evergreen, and that makes total sense to me. I wondered whether that would be happy with that.
I think they're nodding, so that's happy for that. I don't know whether we can add that to the conditional. We'll talk about that later. Anything else, members? No, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you. So that's the end of the public speaking for this item. Nicola, did you have anything to add to members before we come to members' questions?
I'm happy. We're able to change the conditions in terms of adding into a planted bed along the fence as required. That can be an extra bullet point, and we could add in that the pleach trees along the boundary shall be evergreen and have trunk height of 1.8 metres. We can certainly add those in. In relation to the opaque window of the staff bedroom, given that it's not someone's permanent room and the person is only staying in there on an irregular basis, I don't think that would affect the immunity of the person because it's an employment. So from a planning point of view, that would, I think, be acceptable. And certainly the bathroom window is already opaquely glazed, and the boiler room, I believe should be locked anyway. So thank you.
So sorry, was that yes to more opaque windows or not really?
So yes to more. Certainly the staff bedroom could be reasonably opaquely glazed.
Good.
The bathroom is already opaquely
Yes.
glazed. The boiler room, there's no harm in putting it in,
that's
but it's
locked.
locked.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Right. Take that. There was just the question of the access to property as well. I don't know whether we can condition that. at
well,
all, or-
that access to the property is the main entrance into that apartment. That because of how it's been internally arranged, it is the only access to the apartment, and it's an external door. It's conditioning the use of an external door just to access the garden. It's the only way the person can get in and out.
I think also, councillor, it's the enforceability here, because that may be a fire safety issue and we simply are not versed with the facts here. So to start meddling with doors and entrances and egress, it may be a fire safety concern for the undertaking.
Perhaps something for the management plan to cover in terms of appropriate use of that access. Okay. Right. So, members, questions on the report to our officer, please. Councillor Williams?
Thank you. I think it is covered in reports in regards to the ward member mentioned about whether sort of windows could be conditioned to be closed. But I think it's mentioned in the report that with the aircon, they would be closed anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, so the applicant has installed air conditioning units to the top floor 2 apartments, so that there's less need, certainly under current circumstances, for the windows to be kept closed. And the action plan does say that windows, which they have provided to us, does say that the windows can be closed. As mentioned in the report, as you said, we have seen the action plan, and it certainly aims to manage the noise generated internally. But it's a difficult thing to condition, again, and for the same reason that Daniel's mentioned, it's the enforceability of it. But certainly the air conditioning units are there to really focus to ensure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Any more questions for our officer on the report? If we're all clear, we shall move to debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think this application and certainly the report goes into great detail about the efforts to put in as many mitigating measures as possible for neighbouring residents. I think, as the ward councillor sort of mentioned, this isn't, you know, an objection to those residents being there. It's to try and manage the impacts on neighbours. So I do think with the conditions that we've added, including the additional condition for the evergreen planting and the increased distance created by a sort of flower bed to mitigate objects being thrown over to certainly the closest neighbour, 10 Poppy Close. I think those conditions really do sort of go as far as we can. I do think certainly with the acoustic fence, obviously it's mentioned that there won't be mitigating factors to sort of first floors, but we can't really enclose the whole of Bishop's Farm in a box of acoustic panels to stop that impact. So I think the fence, with the fence being there and it being conditioned with the acoustic report, if it doesn't doesn't mitigate those impacts to residents on the ground floor, that's an enforceable condition that we can go back on. So I really do think this application goes as far as we possibly can in regards to mitigating any impacts to residents. So I will be supporting the application with those amended conditions.
Thank you. Any other contributions? Councillor Gordon-Smith.
A lot of it seems to come down to behaviour, doesn't it? Which is not really a planning issue. I mean, my neighbour's children supply footballs over my fence very regularly and other things, and we do get you do get noise from all sorts of different issues. So obviously you can do a certain amount with the acoustic fence, but of course it's only up to 2 meters, 2.2 meters high, and of course sort of loud shouting is not something that's terribly well restricted by acoustic fence. Low rumbling, constant noises work. But, it's meant to be care in the community. People, special needs people benefit from, being in the community and seeing out and looking out of windows. I think, bearing in mind the care that's being taken by the management, that I would support this.
Thank you. Anybody else? So this application is recommended for approval. So can I see all those in favour of approval, please? That's all members. Thank you very much. So that application is approved with the slight changes to the conditions that we've agreed. Thank you. Be a slight pause whilst we change over presenting officers. Right, so we now turn to item number 7 on our agendas this morning, and this is the application at 4 acres Inglefield Lane, Newtown, Fareham, and our presenting officer is Joe Toole. So over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for an erection of 1 4-bed dwelling with a new access, drainage and landscaping, and provision of a new access for the existing bungalow at 4 acres. In terms of the update sheet, there has just been a minor update on the description. There's a typo in terms of it being a 3-bed That's been updated to say 4-bed, and there's been a slight update on the drainage strategy wording in the report as well. So this shows the location plan here with the site aged in red. It goes over to this side here to outline the proposed access for the existing property, 4 acres as well. This shows a wider out aerial photograph of the site as well, again aged in red, showing the site context with the road. This shows the proposed site plan of the dwelling house. So you see here it's attached, it's got a separation distance between the boundaries. This is the screening along here which would be retained as part of the application. There's a parking layout here as well, and there's also access to the paddock to the rear as well through the side of the house. This shows the wider site plan with a bit more labelling of details as well. So it outlines there is actually a cycle store to the back here, again outlining the positions in terms of the context of the site and its relationship with the neighbouring properties as well. Now, this application has gone through various negotiations throughout its course of the application itself. This was a previous design of the elevations proposed for the property. And in terms of contrast, you can see the amended plan here, which is a reduction in the scale and bulk of the development. The height is 7.4 metres at ridge height, with a width of 9.5 metres and a depth of 13.3. I just go back here again, you can sort of get an understanding, especially on the side elevations, of the context of its reduction, where now some elements have been reduced to be single story as well to reduce its appearance. This shows the floor plans provided, so it's a quite generic layout in terms of the bedrooms here with the en-suites on the side, and this shows the roof plan here as well. Now this shows the property within the context of the street. Here is 4 acres, here's Corinna here as well, and this represents the accesses to the site. See, in terms of, go back to the site plan, you see the building line as well, where it doesn't protrude beyond 4 acres here. Onto the site photos. So they are labelled here. We've got some of the word in here. So it just says, yeah, this shows the existing access. And then it shows the site in terms of its context and relationship here. That's 4 acres. Yeah, and this shows the hedging and boundary vegetation along that side there as well, which part of the negotiation was to move the house away from that. So that would be retained, and conditions are recommended on that basis as well. And this is a view towards 4 acres there. And this represents from the neighbouring property, Corinna, here. Again, this is the view across as well from the side boundary. And this represents how it would look within the street scene context. So this application is recommended to be approved based on the officer's report, in line with the local plan policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Right, we now have public speaking. First, we have the objector, Ruth Harding. Good morning, Ms. Harding. You have up to 3 minutes, and your time will start when you start speaking. And you just press the button on the base of the unit to switch on the microphone. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Lunn, who live immediately adjacent to the application site. We respectfully ask you to refuse this application. Firstly, on biodiversity, the site was completely stripped of vegetation immediately prior to the application submission. This seems to be a deliberate attempt to avoid an accurate baseline assessment of its biodiversity value. A standard biodiversity net gain condition, as per the committee report recommendation, does not automatically satisfy policy NE1, which requires schemes to protect or enhance biodiversity. Furthermore, the BNG mitigation hierarchy dictates that offsetting, i.e. just through off-site payments, should be a last resort. I would therefore respectfully ask members this: looking at the before and after photos and the scheme, is policy NE1 really satisfied? Secondly, regarding character and landscape, the existing openness between these properties provides vital visual relief and space for mature planting to define the streetscape. Filling this gap will create a cramped, overdeveloped form of layout extending to within metres of the boundaries. We also remain concerned about the long-term health and survival of the protected trees and boundary hedges, given that there will be deep piles installed along this boundary with Carina. The site is simply too squeezed in my view. Thirdly, in terms of design quality, the design falls significantly short of the high-quality, context-driven architecture demanded by your local plan and the NPPF. This is a generic, off-the-peg house type and fails to respect or respond to the local character, and in my view is simply not good enough to meet policy. Fourthly, in terms of residential amenity, my clients remain deeply concerned by the scale and siting of the proposed dwelling. Its proximity to their boundary, as well as scale and massing, will create intrusive and overbearing sense of enclosure and impact on the enjoyment of their home and garden. Finally, regarding drainage, there is still no evidence of a practical deliverable drainage solution for the scheme, given we do not know the capacity of the ditch along the frontage. Severe drainage issues already exist, and this fundamental requirement has simply been kicked down the road via planning condition. Planning conditions should manage detail and not mask fundamental uncertainty about whether a development is actually deliverable. For these reasons, we respectfully urge you to refuse planning permission. Should you decide to approve it, we do request strict enforcement to ensure all pre-commencement conditions, particularly the BNG plan, are fully discharged before any work begins. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sticking within the 3 minutes. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the neighbour representative? Nope. Okay, you were very clear. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And finally, we have the supporter, Michael Knappett. Good morning, Mr. Knappett. You also have up to 3 minutes when you're ready. The time will start when you start speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and members. The applicant and site owner welcomes the officer recommendation that the application should be approved. The applicant acquired the site from the previous elderly owners who had allowed the whole of the application site to become heavily overgrown. Only the frontage of the adjoining bungalow was regularly maintained, and its rear garden was also heavily overgrown and only cleared by the previous owner's family prior to the sale to the applicant. Following the clearance of the application site, the applicant has taken it upon himself to proactively remove the former petrol tanks, test the soil and demonstrate that the site is suitable to be developed for residential purposes. The Council's Environmental Health Department are aware of the works that have taken place and are happy with them. A pre-application with the Council for Housing confirmed that this was an infill plot in the context of policy MTRA3 of the local plan, part 1, now replaced by successor policy H3 within the new local plan, and that there may be potential for 2 stories along the frontage. The applicant has worked tirelessly with officers to amend the originally submitted application plans in order to reduce the size, mass and bulk of the dwelling and its siting within the site. A much smaller dwelling with far less floor space is now proposed. It's 155 square metres compared to the original 278. More recently, the site drainage has been amended to remove any drainage from the side of the dwelling adjoining the property Corinna. An updated tree protection plan has also been submitted. The proposed dwelling would be approximately 28 metres away from the rear elevation of Corinna, and the existing boundary vegetation would be retained. The first floor side window facing Corinna would be obscure glazed, as it would serve a bathroom. There would be no adverse amenity impact from the other proposed side first floor window facing 4 acres, as it serves as a stairwell. The new dwelling would have 3 parking spaces to the front of the property, as well as a cycle store within the rear garden for bicycles. The proposal would also provide foul and surface water drainage, which is acceptable to the council's land drainage engineer, biodiversity enhancements and biodiversity net gain of 10%, and nutrient neutrality to be secured by planning condition. The end result is a dwelling which would infill a small site within a continuously developed road frontage within Newtown. Officers conclude within their report by stating that the proposed dwelling would integrate appropriately with the existing linear frontage and would not involve the loss of an important gap. The scale, design and siting of the dwelling are compatible with the semi-rural character of the lane, but would not result in harm to the character or appearance of the area. In summary, the proposal is recommended for permission by officers, would make a small contribution towards housing land supply. We hope that you're able to approve this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the applicant's representative, Councillor Lamy?
Thank you. On page 80, we've got a picture of the site plan, and you've got rear access onto the land behind it, which is not covered on that. So why is that included?
The applicant purchased the adjoining bungalow, the current application site edged in red, and the paddock behind from the previous owners. So if we're planning permission to be approved and as part of any sale of this site, rear access may be provided by negotiation to a prospective purchaser, particularly if they required a bit more land, paddock land behind. So it seems sensible to provide a gate within the rear boundary, just to provide access. But
I just find that quite strange.
Sorry, if I could just clarify. I mean, without that access gate, it would effectively be a paddock that would be landlocked with no other means of access. It's just that he bought the land, so he's just trying to facilitate an access to it. So if somebody was to buy up the property, for example, and want to graze a horse, you know, in theory, the horse could graze in the paddock.
Yeah, but that land doesn't belong to that property; it belongs to the next door neighbours. So therefore, I would have expected the access to be from them.
Sorry, we're talking about the gate on the road frontage, or
no? We're talking about the rear gate.
Yeah, the rear paddock, it belongs to the applicant. It's edge blue on the location.
But the planning permission is only for this particular plot.
It is.
We're looking at the line in red.
Yeah.
So therefore, why would it need access onto land that it doesn't own?
I don't think this is something we can discuss, Councillor Lamy. It's outside the red line, and
I think it's quite material to this. I'm sorry.
I'll ask the officers to come back to us and give us more information if they think so. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. It was in regards to the clearance of the site. When was you mentioned it was incredibly sort of overgrown? When was the clearance undertaken?
Set in context, I previously visited the site in May 24, when it belonged to the previous owners, and that they maintained the front garden to the adjoining bungalow is perfectly manicured, but the vegetation had grown up to the back of the house behind the bungalow, and the daughter of the previous owners had begun to clear that part of the site and made undertake a little bit of clearance on the current application site. The applicant went further because when he found out that the site used to be a former petrol station and there was a need to locate the tanks, there was a need to clear the site, to locate them, to remove them, undertake the testing. There were buried items, wheelbarrows on the site, petrol pumps laid flat on the ground. There was a number of items. I understood that one of the previous occupants was a retired electrical engineer. So there's items left behind in a garage building on the site. So the site was cleared shortly after the applicant acquired the site. I don't have the exact date. I'd imagine it was probably late 2024.
So post May 24.
So I visited the site under the guise of trying to provide some advice to the previous owner's daughter, because she was concerned that parents were struggling in the property and they may be looking at going into care.
Any further questions or clarification? No? Great. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Did you want to come back on that issue of the gates at the back? Anybody?
I think we had the explanation. The particular applicant here owns the paddock to the rear. It's in the blue line, I believe the agent was saying. Therefore, the gate is an access into that individual's own paddock.
Okay. Right. Members, no. Joe, do you have anything to add before we come to members' questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification regarding the biodiversity net gain, in terms of the site clearance, the applicant's ecologist relied on satellite imagery to determine the pre-clearance habitat type at the time, which is guidance of the biodiversity metric user guide. So they used a baseline score slightly above that, which is standard guidance, to ascertain what the loss would be. Therefore, the council's ecologist was satisfied with the B&G metric provided. And in terms of biodiversity enhancement, they did provide a preliminary ecology appraisal as well, which outlined various mitigations in terms of providing a bat box, swift box, insect house, hedgehog house, as well as there is also proposed hedgerow plant into the front as well. So on that basis, that was our sort of determination in terms of the satisfaction really on that policy as well.
On the wildlife side, could I just ask, the side treatment between the bungalow and the new house, is that a closed fence?
Sorry, is it the fence in between the boundaries here? It's like a wired fence.
No, the between the bungalow and.
Oh, between the bungalow, yes, that's just a standard fence between that space.
Is it a closed?
Yes, yeah.
So can we add Hedgehog Highway access through there?
The position was to be in the northern corner space, which I'm trying to see if there's the best photograph to show it, but it would be within this space here. Not this part.
You think there'll be plenty of access? It's just that, you know, it's one thing to put in a hedgehog house, but if they can't actually get into the garden.
Yeah, I mean, we can always, whether it's necessary to condition that.
Is it included within the ecologist report?
Yes.
Then it's covered within that.
Okay, I'm happy. Thank you. Right. Sorry. Members' questions, Councillor Aaron.
Thank you. The objector mentioned the proximity of the new house to the vegetation which separates it from the neighbouring property. And I think I understood her say that there were worries that building a house so close to that row of screening vegetation might damage the trees and bushes. Is that a worrying aspect or not?
No, thank you. In terms of that position, we did consult our tree officer on it, and the condition is in place for protective measures to be put along that boundary as regards to protective fencing, ground protection and supervision of engineering along that operation. So the intention is for that to be retained and be protected during the course of the application.
Councillor White.
So it's regarding the drainage. Obviously, I live very close to this area, and Inglefield Lane in particular is renowned for having bad drainage. particularly with all the excessive rain we've been having over the winter. And queries have been raised about the ditch that runs along the road. And I see that we have a condition for more detail on the drainage. I just wonder if the wider sort of road drainage and the wider area, I mean, Church Lane on the back is clay soil that has drainage issues as well. So whether that's going to be looked at as part of that condition.
In terms of the ditch itself, there is a condition 14 that regards that to be retained and maintained and not to be removed during the lifetime of the application. The wider scope of the drainage would be a consideration at discharge condition stage. We'll review the data they provided and look at whether there is sufficient mitigation that and it would be done through that mechanism.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions, but one of them is a follow-on from Councillor White, because I had it jotted down. And it's in regards to sort of the update on our update sheet in regards to the maximum 1.8 litres a second to the existing culverted ditch. It does seem quite a lot, and especially with the site having a lot of hard standing on that particular site. I know part of that is going to be part of sort of the soakaway, but in regards to sort of the roof, etc., in surface runoff, would it be unreasonable to sort of condition a slow release water butt as part of the application, whether that's something that we could do? I'm just thinking those heavy downpours whereby all of the watercourses are completely overwhelmed, it may alleviate some of that additional pressure, whether that's a condition that we can add, if it's reasonable enough.
Without the specific advice of the drainage engineer, I'm not sure it would be a reasonable condition to add. So I would err on the side of caution and suggest that if the drainage engineer hasn't suggested it, it isn't actually required.
Then my second question, if I may, it was just to clarify the update in regards to the biodiversity net gain. I think you explained it really well, but it was just to sort of clarify that the biodiversity net gain calculation was made on the pre-clearance of the site. I mean, I think we also have a backdated date of, is it January 21 to go back to in case yeah, as a sort of baseline, but it was just to clarify that the biodiversity net gain will be done off the pre-clearance of the site.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so the calculation was done as a result of relied on previous satellite imagery from that stage. So they looked at to determine that figure, as obviously when it was carried out from viewing the site firsthand, the site was cleared, so you couldn't get a real-time calculation. So they had to rely on previous figures. And the course of that guidance, there was always an up score they give as well in terms of covering themselves on that basis as well. So yeah, they did use that approach at this application.
If there are no more questions, members. Oh, Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Do we know what sort of hard surface is proposed for there? Because that would make a huge difference.
I'm not fully sure, but I would expect it to be permeable. But obviously, in terms of the position of the drainage officer, they've reviewed the case and haven't raised a concern with regards to issues with regards to surface discharge water, and the measures that would be proposed as a package treatment plant to the front would be appropriate in terms of the foul water. But I suppose we could get clarification on that in terms of a condition to the hard stand-in to be provided.
Is it reasonable to condition that that surface should be permeable?
That will all be taken into consideration when we consider the drainage details as a whole. And whilst we're not very clear on what the surface material is, that will be encompassed within those mitigation measures and package treatment plant.
So if necessary, it will be asked to be permeable.
Yes. that will form part of the works if it's required. But it may already be permeable anyway.
Any more questions on the report before we go to debate, members? No, so debate. Who would like? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think so the principle, obviously, of developing this site is covered under our old policy M203. I'm still brushing up on what the new policy numbers are in relation to that. So sort of the principle of a dwelling there, I don't think is a reasonable objection. In regards to the drainage, I think that's suitably conditioned in regards to condition 5. In regards to having those further details, I do think that that's going to be quite important to mitigate the impacts on the wider area. One single dwelling, adding to a watercourse isn't normally, one large impact. The rain is still falling in that area. However, we need to mitigate that impact as much as possible onto neighbouring residents. So whether there's further soakaways in regards to that driveway area that's currently hard standing, I think that's quite important. And I think the clarification on the biodiversity net gain has been really important here, in that, developers sometimes do try and clear sites in regards to try and get away with that biodiversity net gain, but we have the backup of that baseline to go for all the pre-clearance works. So I think I'll be supporting this application.
Thank you. Anybody else? So this application is recommended for approval. Can I see all those in favour, please? And those against? So that application is approved. Thank you. We will now take a short break. Let's make sure we're back by 11 o'clock, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. We now return to the agenda for today's planning committee. And just to remind you, item 8 has been deferred and will be heard at a future planning committee. So we're now on item number 9, which is 1 Bridge Street, Winchester. And Matthew. Sorry. Our presenting officer is Megan Osborne. Good morning, Megan. Over to you.
Good morning. This application is located on the City Bridge next to the River Itchen. It's a Grade 2 star listed building and within Winchester Conservation Area. This building used to be a restaurant, uses Pizza Express, and now they are undergoing operations to use it as a dental surgery. Just an aerial photo of the same view. So here's the River Itchen, and this is the building here. The proposal was for a flood barrier to be located in the existing doorway to the west elevation basement level. Show you a photo. So this is an example of the flood barrier. And this is a photo of the door where the flood barrier is proposed to be. The sandbags would be removed as a result of these works. Slim metal side channels would be fitted to the side of the door frame, and aluminium panels would then slotted into the door, into the front of the door. The City of Winchester Trust did object to this application due to the visual appearance of the flood barrier on the listed building. They asked if the appearance could be changed or painted black. Officers did look into this, and the flood barrier is quite standard in design, so it was not possible to change the design. Also, we also looked into the painting it black. However, due to the location of it close to the water, the black paint would wear off over time and it would not last. Therefore, the proposal that is in front of us is considered acceptable, and although it's established it would result in a less than substantial harm to the setting of the listed building, this is outweighed by the public benefits of protecting the listed building from flood water damage. Therefore, the application recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have no public speaking on this item, so we'll go straight to members' questions. Councillor Aaron.
I just want to be sure that I want to ask if the flood barrier, so how much more protection does it give than the existing sandbags? Is it a substantial improvement or a minor one? Or
it will be an improvement to what's there existing. I don't know exactly how much of improvement than the existing sandbags.
Yeah, Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Very often these sort of barriers are demountable and just put up when there's a flood warning. They'd have it along the Severn in Shrewsbury and various other places. Is this the same case here?
That's correct. It would be temporary, so it'd be put up when there's a flood risk. The brackets would still remain.
Sure.
Councillor Leeming.
Yeah. Sorry, Megan, but I do find it strange that it's got to be a silver colour, because there is various metal treatments that can be used, and as it's only been put up in temporary when it's necessary, I would very much like to see it conditioned that we have it as a black or a dark colour, so it fits in with the building a lot better. I'm sure you've looked into it, but there are various metal treatments that can be used on this sort of application.
Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming the sandbags are in situ permanently, and I am concerned that although the barrier is said to be temporary, that it may well be left there permanently. So I am also very concerned about the colour. I think that metal would stand out like a sore thumb, and I would like to see it conditioned that it's black.
Can we have some advice on this, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. My only concern about trying to apply a condition now to require potentially an alternative floodgate is that we don't know whether that's possible and we don't have the applicant's agreement to it. So essentially by imposing that condition, you could be preventing the development and almost sort of essentially refusing the application. So I think if members were minded that they wanted an alternative solution, then a deferral would be the best opportunity for us to go back and negotiate with the applicant.
Councillor Williams.
Would we be able to condition that they are only in place when required? Winchester City Council is the landlord of this property, so you know I think it would be expected that we should sort of follow our own conditions when they're in place. I understand the reasoning behind the sort of paint aspect, but whether we could add that as an informative, so having an informative for the colour, and then having an actual condition that they're only in place when required. We haven't had sort of substantial flooding in Winchester since 2014, so I think I think that would be fairly reasonable with the infrequent sort of nature of them needing to be there.
I think that'd be something we could condition, yes.
Condition or put in the informatives?
Put a condition requiring the times of when it's used.
Good. Okay. There is a condition that says there is a condition that says something about making it appropriate. And I just think that really covers making it look less like a modern piece of metal and then make it more appropriate. There are ways, as Councillor Laming said, there are paint treatments that won't necessarily peel off, so long as it's only used when it's necessary as well. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for it to be more appropriate. I mean, obviously, I think we'd all desperately like to see the end of those sandbags, but if that means putting something equally inappropriate on such an important listed building with such a well looked at, historic view of the city, isn't it? That to put something inappropriate there just seems when we could reasonably, I think it's given it's a grade 2 star listed building.
I think, Chair, the problem is if you're requesting on that particular treatment, it might need powder coating. And for example, for it to slide into the brackets, if you're adding the thickness of paint, it may not then slide in. So effectively, you're rendering that particular specification void, which is effectively a refusal. So Deborah's suggestion of deferring it to see whether or not paint treatment will still enable the product to work, i.e. once it's coated, it will still slide in with the thickness of the powder coating or whatever. That is the best approach, because we don't know is the simple answer, and it may nullify the whole specification and product that they want to put in place.
Councillor Laming, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Thank you. An easy solution then is to put a camouflage unit in front of it, which won't affect the work of it because it's going to be recessed in anyway. And that would be a simple solution. There is good engineering principles that you can use to do this, and it's relatively simple. So I would encourage everybody to look at a better solution.
Chair, if I may, we're obviously here to consider what's in front of us. So yes, whilst I applaud alternative solutions that are discussed, we would need to go back to the applicant to discuss those. So we need to concentrate on what's before us and whether we think it's sufficiently harmful to defer the application for further negotiation.
Councillor Gordon-Smith, did you want to?
Yes, it's perfectly possible to paint aluminium. Been painting aluminium yacht hulls for decades. I don't think there'd be any problem with the tolerances, because actually, if you look at the details of this thing, it's held in place with sort of rubber seals down the side. And once you've dropped all the bits in place, you then have to tighten it up to hold them in place. So I think a few microns of paint's not going to make any difference. We seem to be making an awful mountain out of this, but
I think rather than defer it, I'd rather put in a condition that it's going to be painted black and, you know, the details to be decided. I think that the applicant would prefer that, in fact, to a deferral. But if the advice is that we need to defer in order to go through those negotiations with the applicant, then I'm happy to propose that we defer. But Councillor Williams just has a comment.
Yes, I mean, we could even sort of, I mean, could we be explicit in the condition in that, you know, should the edges, should any paint treatment to the edges where it slots in with the rubber seal that's then tightened, you know, should they remain sort of aluminium, then so be it. But the central sort of part that's visible and not locked in, I'm just thinking of a sort of a leeway in case that is a sort of outright no.
Thank you, Chair. We are considering various options, including a notwithstanding the submitted details condition, the deferral, as we've already discussed, and now potentially a condition that says prior to installation, full details shall be approved, notwithstanding the submitted details. So it's not entirely straightforward, but I think we probably could add a condition if nothing else, the applicant could appeal against the condition, or they could seek alternatives to be agreed with officers in consultation with the Historic Environment Officer.
I think the views of members are clear that we do want to see that it's a more appropriate finish, and sympathetic to the very historic building that we're talking about. But we don't want to defer it because that would hold things up. And the advice of certain members who have experience of these things is that actually what we're asking for is not impossible. So I think that we are going to ask the officers to draft an extra condition that pre-installation the surface finish will be agreed as something more appropriate, ideally a black paint finish. And that would be in addition to the only put in place when required anyway extra condition. Do members agree to those extra conditions? Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay. So is there any other debate on this? I think we've trespassed into debate rather than questions, but is there any debate? No, I think we've had enough debate really. So with those two extra conditions to be agreed with the chair in due course, can I see that application is recommended for approval? Can I see those in favour, please? So that is all members. Yeah, thank you very much. That is approved with those conditions applied. Right, I will now pass over to my Vice Chair for the next item. Thank you.
Excellent. So then the next item for us is item 10, Apple Crumble Pudding Lane in Headbourne Worthy, and our presenting officer is Matthew Rutledge. Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you. So this application is for the variation of two conditions to a permission for a replacement dwelling and an outbuilding that was granted in 2020. It's proposed to amend condition 4, which restricted the use of the outbuilding in order to allow the outbuilding to be used as an ancillary domestic or living space, and to amend condition 3, which was the approved plans to allow for some additional windows and some internal changes to the outbuilding. Just to note that the original scheme presented under this application included a business use of the outbuilding as a Pilates studio, but following concerns from neighbours, the applicant has decided to remove all elements of business use from the scheme. And the amendment to condition 4 around the use of the outbuilding can be read on page 147 of the report. It's proposed to relax the condition slightly to allow the outbuilding to be used for ancillary domestic purposes, but still ensure cannot be used as an independent unit of accommodation or for business, commercial or industrial purposes. And therefore, any future proposals to use the outbuilding for business or perhaps short-term holiday let would require a new application.
Excellent, thank you, Matthew. So we go over to public speakers. We have one.
Oh,
sorry.
So yeah, sorry, the location plan. So you can see Apple Crumble here in red. There's the old bakehouse is a creative listed building, and same with Pudding Farm. This is the original permission, the site plan. You see the outbuilding as originally granted there. This is what has been built and what is existing at present. There's a small area of lawn here, which is now proposed to have the existing driveway extended into that area using the same permeable block paving. This is the ground floor plan as originally permitted. And this is what's been built. So the overall carport area and internal area is same in terms of floor footprint, but there's some internal changes and change to the position of the doors. This is the first floor plan as built. So there's just an attic space with a hatch for access. And the roof plan as built. So as originally permitted, this was the southwest elevation. And this is what has been built. So there's a slight change to sort of a reduction of one of the panes of glazing here, and this doorway is moved. You'll also notice this shows solar panels, but these are considered acceptable under permit development and they're not being assessed here. This is the northeast elevation as approved and as built. These are the originally approved northwest and southeast elevations. This is what's been constructed. There's no change here. It might look slightly different because the materials approved under a discharge of condition application were for the vertical composite cladding, which is what you can see here. So now moving on to the proposed plans. This is the southwest elevation. There's no change here. In the northeast elevation, it's proposed to add 4 roof lights, including one that's obscure glazed here. And in the northwest elevation, it's proposed to add 1 window in the front-facing gable. Proposed ground floor, there's no real change other than the addition of some stairs internally to get access to the first floor, which now becomes a studio space, and there's a shower room added. That's a proposed roof plan with the roof lights proposed. So we've got the site photos. This is the access to the site and the carport or the outbuilding. The neighbouring dwelling has a very similar outbuilding. You can see the relationship between the two. And this is the elevation where the proposed roof lights will go into this roof slope. That's the southwest elevation where there's no changes proposed. And that's the area of lawn which will have the permeable block paving extended into it. If you're looking back towards Pudding Lane, this is the adjacent Grade 2 listed building, the old bakehouse. And then views along Pudding Lane from the site entrance, northeast and southwest. That concludes the presentation. Our recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Excellent. Sorry about that, Matthew. Very short. So we now move to public speaking, where we have one public speaker, the supporter, Neil March. If you'd like to come forward, you're already familiar, having spoken today already. You have 3 minutes when you start speaking. Just remember to turn on the microphone before you do.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. My name is Neil March and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicants in support of this application and the officer's recommendation for approval. The application seeks a variation of conditions attached to the original planning permission granted in 2020. The proposed variation of condition relates to an existing outbuilding, as shown, used for ancillary residential use. It is important to emphasise at the outset that the proposal before you today is not the proposal that originally generated concern from local residents. The previously proposed Pilates studio and associated business use has been completely withdrawn following consultation with neighbours and engagement with the planning process. That element no longer forms any part of the application before you. The proposal now seeks only to allow ancillary domestic use of the outbuilding associated with the existing dwelling, together with the relatively minor alterations, including fenestration changes and accommodation within the roof space. There is no increase in the footprints in the building's footprint, height, scale or overall form. The proposed development is therefore a modest refinement of an already approved building. The officer's report confirms that the proposed changes will not materially alter the appearance of the outbuilding, will not harm the wider character of the locality and will not result in unacceptable impacts on neighbouring properties. The report carefully assesses the proposal against the development plan and concludes that it complies with local plan policies D1, D7 and SP3. These policies require development to be well designed, protect residential amenity and avoid harm to the character of the area. Members will also note that the Highway Authority's earlier concerns related specifically to visitors attending the previously proposed use. Once that use was removed, those concerns ceased to apply. The officer therefore concludes that the development will have no material impact on traffic generation, highway safety or parking provision and is compliant with policy T1. Similarly, detailed consideration has been given to neighbouring amenity. The report demonstrates that the proposed windows and roof lights will not create harmful overlooking, and where any potential concern existed, a condition requiring obscure glazing has been recommended. The proposal is therefore in accordance with policy D1. Members may also take reassurance from the wording of the proposed amended condition. This expressly prevents the outbuilding from being used as an independent dwelling and prevents any business, commercial or industrial use in the future. The condition is clear, enforceable and provides long-term certainty for both the council and neighbouring residents. The report also concludes that there is no harm to the setting of nearby listed buildings. In planning terms, there would be no material harm. Due to the applicant's decision to amend the proposals with the aim of maintaining a positive relationship with the neighbours, the objections previously raised are no longer relevant. As a result, the proposal is in accordance with the relevant policies of the local plan, and the officer recommendation for approval is well founded. I therefore respectfully request that the members endorse this recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from members? No? Excellent. I think you put your points clearly. If you could turn off the microphone just before you return. Thank you. So we now go back to Matthew. Any updates regarding public speaking? No? Excellent. Questions from members then. Anybody have any questions on this application? Councillor Laming.
Yeah, on the roof lights, are we stipulating that we've got coverings to stop any spill in an upward way?
No, it's not within the sort of South Downs dark sky area, so not considered necessary.
Councillor Small.
Thank you, Chair. The previous application, was it mentioned that there was a condition to use it for just ancillary use to the main dwelling? Does that condition pass over to this, or do we need to put that again?
I believe so, but good.
Well, so that's the condition that is being amended. So the original condition required that the outbuilding had to be used for storing motor vehicles, and it said ancillary domestic storage, which obviously limits using it as like a garden office or other sort of ancillary but domestic uses. So the intention is just to relax that a little bit, so that could be used as a office space or any residential use that you would do inside of the main house.
Any further questions, members? Move to debate. Anybody for debate? Yeah. I think the only thing I'll just briefly mention is obviously having going through the objectors' concerns. It's very much in objection to the business use of the original application, and that is no more. So I'll be supporting the application. Any further for debate? So we moved to the decision. This planning application is recommended for approval. I see all those in favour of approval. So that's all members. Thank you. So that planning application is approved.
Right, so we're now on item number 11 of today's Planning Committee agenda. And this is the application at 1 Hinton Hill Cottages, Hinton Ampner in Hampshire. And our presenting officer is Lisa Booth. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is for the proposed change of use of a disused residential dwelling owned by the National Trust at Hinton Ampner to a children's day nursery for babies up to 3 years old. The site is located along Hinton Hill with a parking area to the east. So this is the site here. So this is the house. And then there's access here to this parking area. It's just the aerial map. So this is the existing site plan. There are no physical changes to the existing building here, but the existing parking area here is to be resurfaced with using a geotex and probably marked out with further planting to the boundary here. And these garages will be demolished that belong to the National Trust. So this is the proposed site plan. Sorry, that was the existing site plan.
So the proposed scheme will provide 21 allocated parking spaces with a 3 further unallocated parking spaces. So there'll be 24 in total. There are currently 18 unallocated spaces, and the existing spaces provide parking for neighbouring dwellings, the National Trust staff and volunteers. So in this scheme, there will be 5 spaces for nursery staff, a disabled nursery visitor space and 5 flexible nursery visitor spaces, and there will also be a drop-off zone here for 2 cars. The drop-off turnaround is expected to be about 5 to 10 minutes, and drop-offs will be staggered between 8 to 8:30 and then pick up at 4:30 to 6:30. Outside of these times, evenings and weekends, the flexible nursery spaces will be available for use by neighbouring properties and the National Trust. Hence, in practice, the proposed allocation of parking will be maintained for existing users. A traffic note was submitted and assessed by Hampshire County Council Highways, and they've raised no objections to the level of the proposed vehicle movements and access, subject to conditions for a construction management plan and a parking management plan. This is existing house, the proposed floor plan. Bigger version of the car park. There's going to be planting here along the front boundary as well, and then a little bit in the inside of the car park. This is the existing house from the road. Access will be from the rear as well. So this is the rear. This is the current car parking area. These garages will be demolished. So there's 5 garages, not 3. And then access into the site through this gateway. The principle of the change of use is considered to be in accordance with policy SD43 of the South Downs Local Plan for new community facilities. It's considered that the need for the infant and toddler care has been established by the existing Hummingbirds nursery in nearby Bramdean, which cannot fulfil demand for local parents. This is apparent from the number of letters of support and from Hampshire County Council Services for Young Children. In regard to neighbouring amenity, I'll just go back to the block plan. The use will be within daytime hours controlled by condition 5, with the number of children at one time being between 6 to 15. The average is 12 per day. As the children are very young, noisy outside play will be limited due to their abilities at that age. Visiting times are short, generally 5 minutes to drop off, pick up, with a dedicated waiting zone. It's not anticipated that the proposal will result in a detrimental impact on the amenities of neighbouring properties. The rest of the car park will remain as it currently is for parking for the neighbouring properties and overflow for the National Trust. It's therefore recommended that permission is granted subject to the conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you very much. We now go to public speaking. We have one objector, John Ferry. Good morning, Mr. Ferry. Thank you for waiting. I know you've waited a long while. You have up to 3 minutes and the timer will start when you start speaking. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for hearing me. I've lived in Hinton Ampner for 26 years in the property directly to the east of the proposed car park. In that time, the things that several things worry me. One is that the parking that they're proposing is allocated parking for the church when there are funerals and things during the day. No provision has been made for that eventuality, which does happen from time to time. It is also the only place in the village where workmen's vans can park when they are working on the houses. My house is due to have a new roof and all the workmen will be working from that area. No provision for that. Hinton Hill, the road, is a single track road with passing places and a blind exit onto the A272, which has a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Those are the photographs that I took the other morning. So there's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit at that point. In addition, cars are parked on either side of the road lane at the Yew Tree Cottage at the bottom and up by the old post office, which narrows the road further, as can be seen in the photograph. The other problem is that there's a bus stop at the bottom of that road for both service buses and the school coaches that run into Perrins, and they straddle the whole of the junction while they're picking up and dropping off pupils. That creates queues on Hinton Lane, but also on the A272. And the proposal is that cars will be dropping every 5 or 10 minutes at this nursery. They'll be queuing along the 272 and, can only be dangerous. Nobody seems to have taken that into account. I think your survey was done in the winter. In addition, you've got all the Wayfarers Walk running along the top of the of Hinton Lane, and the walkers, the public will use the one passing place to park in so that they can go for a walk. They don't use the public car park for the Hinton Ampner House. It is very congested and very dangerous, and there will be an accident, I can assure you. Change of use of the house. I've checked back over the last year, and that house has not been advertised, as far as I can see, for local residents to use. We have a shortage of local housing. They've advertised, the trust have advertised and let other houses, but that one doesn't seem to have been used. So I don't know what the justification is for a change of use at all. One other thing, the parish council have rejected the application on the similar grounds that I'm talking about. One other thing that they won't be aware of is that my house was not put on the village sewerage scheme about 15 years ago. I have a septic tank which will require access to be emptied, and the soakaway for that is actually under the corner of the proposed car park.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the objector before he goes? No, no. If you could just switch off the microphone then, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You were very clear. Thank you. Okay. I think there's a few issues there. Lisa, if you wanted to address any of those before we go to members' questions.
Yeah, in terms of the car park, it's a private car park owned by the National Trust, and I assume that they have agreement, whoever, I think the houses are rented from the National Trust around there. So it would be a civil matter between them, in terms of the church and things like that. And what we've looked at is, for that use, and Hampshire County Council have looked at passing places and everything like that, and they're happy with it. So
is there any indication along the road that people shouldn't park there or use the passing places for parking?
No, I've looked on Google Maps, and I think you mentioned stuff, but there's some little signs. There's parking needed, don't park it. But I think they're ones that residents have maybe put up themselves. But so as I know, it's just sort of a rural lane, really.
Right, okay. So we don't have any other public speaking. So members' questions. Yes, Alison, please do come forward. Sorry, you were a slightly late registration, so I hadn't got you on my update sheet. This is Alison Pierce, who is a supporter. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me.
You have up to 3 minutes.
I have. So I'm Alison Pierce, and I am the owner and director of Hummingbirds Nursery. We've been running in Bramdean as a thriving nursery for the last 22 years. And more recently, we've moved into, in 2022, we've moved into a lovely barn purpose-built for us at College Farm Yard in Bramdean, next door to the church at Bramdean, and we share a car park there with the church and with College Farm Yard. And we are primarily for working parents for children over 2 at the place where we are in Bramdean. But I have been asked to read out a letter from a parent who lives in Hinton Ampner, She's a Hinton Ampner resident called Maggie Adnett. She's a doctor, and she is in support of this change of use because it is for babies from 9 months to 2 years, not 3 years. Those children will feed into our larger setting, which is actually only 3 fields away. We often walk there from our current setting. So I'll just read out what she says. She says, this application for a new nursery setting for children up to 2 years old is essential for our family and for the wider local community. No childcare provision of this age group currently exists near Hinton Ampner. For our eldest child, we have had no option but to travel 8 miles to the nearest nursery in Winchester for childcare, a significant burden alongside daily commuting to work. Several other families in the village and surrounding areas face the same gap in provision. With a second child due, a local nursery within walking distance would directly address this shortfall. It would also strengthen the local community by giving families a shared, accessible resource. Under 2's childcare provision is also a key factor in attracting younger families to the area, which in turn sustains the local community. Cheriton Primary School, for example, is marking its 150th anniversary this year with a legacy fund in order to support its future. A nursery that feeds directly into local schools is vital for ensuring these establishments continue to thrive. And as a resident of Hinton Ampner, I'm confidently want to propose this setting can operate with full respect of neighbouring residents. Now, from my point of view, this is not unique. We've had more than 60 requests. We haven't advertised that we're trying to get this change of use, but we've had more than 60 requests from local parents to try and get onto a waiting list. And we're also the main nursery that is feeding Cheriton Primary School, so they are very much in favour of us continuing to do that.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the applicant? No, you were very clear and the report's very clear as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, do you want me to address the funeral?
Well, if you could address the shared use with the church.
We have the same. We're very respectful. We've been in Bramley for 22 years, and we have never had a complaint from any family or parent or other business regarding our nursery. Now, at the big site, we have 28 children a day, very much outdoors, lots of walking. Every child has a good 2-hour walk a day, and so the nursery itself is very quiet. We share the car park with the church. Whenever there is a funeral, it's the same vicar at Hinton Ampner. He lets us know, and we make every contingency to make sure that all of the spaces are available for the church during that time. We know it's happening. We take the children off site so that there's no noise when the funeral is happening. I think the Hinton Ampner church is a little bit further away, but at the same time, it is the same protocol that we're using right now to share a car park with the church.
Thank you. That was very clear. I think there aren't any other questions of clarification. No, thank you very much. If you could switch off the microphone as you go. Thank you. Right. Did you want to, was there anything else you wanted to update us on, Lisa? No, thank you. Members, questions on the report? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think Lisa clarified it, but it was just in relation to any policy in the South Downs National Park in regards to the loss of private homes. Obviously, the policy in regards to supporting the rural businesses is quite clear, but just to clarify that, if possible, thank you.
Yes, there isn't a policy that specifically says we shall keep all houses. If there is a justification for change of use of a house, you do see it quite often where houses are used for different purposes, such as an office or something like that. Providing there's justification for that new use, there isn't any policy reason not to allow it. So.
I think you described it as a disused dwelling. Do you know when it was last used as a family home?
I did ask, and the agent said that the last that they knew was it was definitely empty in November 2024, maybe, and possibly before that. But I don't know. So.
And could I ask, should the nursery for whatever reason, fail and move out. Can I just check that condition 6 secures this site from the potential of unsuitable uses in the future?
Yes, it just restricts it to this particular nursery use only. Anything else outside of that will need to apply for planning permission and it'll be assessed on the same merits.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Any debate? Councillor Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just worry about the traffic side of things, which I do see from the pictures is going to be a little bit of a nightmare. But I am reassured by staggered drop-off times, although whether people keep to those, I don't know. You know what the experience is, but it is going to be busy there. However, I believe, you know, the case officer said that Hampshire was satisfied with the traffic situation. So I don't think there's any grounds therefore for us to do anything about that. So thank you.
Any more? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in regards to the traffic, I do know the area well. There are, I think, a lot of people that park there that want to enjoy the National Trust grounds. There's lots of resident signs up in regards to sort of no parking, but I do think this is sufficiently far away from the junction with the 272, and there is an appropriate area for vehicles to turn, should that be an issue, which is probably why highways have come back with no objection to that. And I think it is supporting a rural business to expand. It is obviously a shame in regards to those that have been using the car park may not be able to use it fully to the extent they once were, but it is private land and not a sort of loss of a public car park. So I think we have no option to approve this.
Right. If there's no more, oh, Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Well, I have to say I rather agree with Councillor Williams. We know that arguing about traffic problems, if Hampshire have ticked it off, that we're going to end up being stymied. And again, I appreciate the point the resident made about the van parking and so on, but it is actually a private car park belonging to the National Trust, and it's for them to arrange the management of it to meet the various requirements. And it's not we can't dictate what would happen to that. So I think we need to support this, and it seems actually a good location for a small nursery to be.
Councillor Aaron, did you want to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add something. Sorry, we haven't mentioned the need for nursery places, and I think that is clearly a big part of this. That need for this very young age of nursery age children is vital, and particularly in rural areas quite far away from other nurseries. So I think that is a strong argument for approving as well.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, so if there's no more debate, this application is recommended for approval. Can I see all those in favour, please? So that is all members. So that application is approved. Thank you very much, and that's the end of today's planning committee. See you all next month. Thank you.